I just saw the Odyssey, and when people talk about Christopher Nolan, they often talk about his complex storytelling, his practical filmmaking, or the sheer scale of his movies. The Odyssey has all of this. It's not complex in the way Memento or Inception are, but it's not your usual journey either. Nolan has managed to inject his own style into the 3,000-year-old Greek mythology. As expected, it's a huge production, the production design is extraordinary, the action is grand, and the world feels vast. There are several moments where you simply sit back and admire what's on screen. But while I was watching the film, I kept coming back to one thought. You can feel Nolan's passion in every frame. I don't only mean this from a cinematography perspective, but also in terms of the overall story and the way it's told. You know, the sound design, the editing, the screenplay. Every frame feels intentional. Whether it's the Trojan horse, the towering statues, the vast oceans, nothing feels accidental. Every creative decision feels like it has purpose throughout the entire production process. Speaking of purpose, a camera was made just for this film. This is the first film shot entirely with a brand new IMAX camera called the IMAX Kaylee. It was developed specifically for this production. That is what I call strong intent and purpose. Before I get into the filmmaking details, let's quickly talk about the story, which we all know of. I mean, if you read. The Odyssey is based on the epic Greek poem by Homer. It follows Odysseus, king of Ithaca, as he tries to return home after the Trojan War. What follows is a 10-year adventure filled with storms, mythical creatures, gods, temptation, and impossible choices. Even if you've never read Homer, you've almost certainly seen stories inspired by it. The reluctant hero, the long journey home, the temptation to abandon a mission, overcoming impossible odds. So many stories borrow from the Odyssey because it established ideas that still resonate today. That's also why I don't think this story has survived thousands of years simply because of mythology. If you look at these themes, then it's no surprise that Christopher Nolan would be fascinated with this story. Although Homer's Odyssey has the Cyclops, monsters, and many other mythological aspects, underneath all of that, it's a surprisingly human story. Underneath all the spectacle, it's about perseverance, it's about living with the consequences of your decisions, it's about resisting temptation, and ultimately it's about a man trying to get back to his family, a chase against time. Christopher Nolan has consistently shown throughout his career an interest in characters facing impossible situations while carrying the weight of their own choices. Whether it's exploring memory, time, guilt, or sacrifice, his films are usually driven by emotional conflict beneath the spectacle. Whether it's a film on space or war or dreams or a magician or a man trying to find out who killed his wife, Nolan always has a human touch to his films. They have a certain depth. The Odyssey needed a director like Nolan. It did not need a director who could simply recreate Greek mythology. It needed a director who understood why this story has lasted for thousands of years, 3,000 to be specific. One may feel he has toned down the mythological aspects quite a bit from the ancient Greek epic poem, and some may find that to be a wrong choice. For me, at its core, Nolan has successfully managed to grab the main essence of the original. Thankfully, Nolan doesn't treat the Odyssey as a collection of famous mythological moments. He treats it as a story of a man trying to find his way home, and that human perspective gives the spectacle real emotional weight. To me, that is what matters. The spectacle adds to this and makes it larger than life. For example, the action isn't memorable because of its scale, it's memorable because every sequence has a purpose. That in turn complements the scale. The film doesn't try to make every scene bigger or louder than the one before it. Instead, Nolan understands that a real journey isn't a constant escalation. Sometimes there are moments of danger, sometimes there are moments of silence and reflection. So by allowing the story to breathe, the major moments feel more powerful because they have meaning behind them. Take the Cyclops sequence, for example, which is one of the earlier sequences in the film. Without giving too much away, it's one of those moments where the film reminds you that Odysseus isn't defined by physical strength. He's defined by intelligence. The tension doesn't come from wondering who will defeat the beast. It comes from watching a character think his way out of the impossible situation. So yes, the beast is large and spectacular, but what makes the scene is the strategic approach to face the situation. The spectacle of the beast adds to that. The same runs throughout the film, and this is what makes the film more than just an adventure film. In fact, calling this film an adventure film is quite undermining. Again and again, Odysseus is forced to rely on strategy rather than brute force. Even the larger battles feel carefully planned games of chess rather than raw power. I found it refreshing because it gives the action another layer. You're not just watching people fight, you're watching problems being solved. Another sequence that really stayed with me involves Circe. It's one of the most memorable moments from Homer's poem, and Nolan doesn't shy away from its strangeness. What makes this scene work is the context leading up to it. Odysseus and his men have been starving, exhausted, and desperate for food after their long journey when they encounter Circe. She doesn't simply overpower them, she exploits their hunger and their desperation, transforming Odysseus' loyal men into pigs. Before they physically become pigs, however, we see them already behaving like animals. Their hunger and desperation have already begun to strip away their humanity before Circe completes the transformation. So Nolan takes a mythological sequence and finds something deeply human within it. That's something I admired throughout the film. Nolan never treats mythology like a spectacle for its own sake. Everything reveals something about the characters and the situations. The obstacles exist to test Odysseus, his leadership, and his people traveling with him. The same is true for the ocean itself. Most films use the sea as a backdrop. Here it feels like an obstacle in its own right. Sometimes it's calm, sometimes it's beautiful, sometimes it becomes the greatest threat in the film. There's a constant feeling that nature doesn't care who you are. It doesn't matter whether you're a king. Once you're out there, you're completely at its mercy. I thought Nolan captured that brilliantly. Another aspect of the film, which is very Nolan-like, is the way in which he tells the overall story, the screenplay, and the structure. The story, at parts, is told in a non-linear way. This, to me, made the film even more engaging. Different characters gradually reveal different parts of Odysseus' journey, and every new perspective adds another piece to the larger picture. I was constantly connecting the dots, the ideas, and rethinking everything that I've seen. I love moments where you see sequences twice. The first time it is unclear, while the second time it gives a different aspect to the scene. It reveals something new. The structure of this film is honestly the type which pushes me to give a second viewing of the film. I may catch things which I didn't catch the first time, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna watch this again in the movie theater. Now, while this deals with the screenplay and the structure, the editing has a huge role to play in this as well. A film like this could easily become overwhelming, especially with the shifting perspectives and the timeline. But the transitions are genuinely well thought of, and they also have a purpose. The film always gives you enough information to stay emotionally invested, while holding back just enough to keep you curious about what's coming next. Visually, of course, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that this is one of the best looking films Christopher Nolan has ever made. The cinematography is breathtaking, mainly because it feels real. The IMAX photography gives the landscapes an incredible sense of scale, but what impressed me the most wasn't just how large everything looked, it was in the detail. Whether the camera is capturing the vastness of the ocean, the architecture of ancient Greece, or the quiet expression on the character's face, every image feels carefully designed. The sound deserves just as much praise. The sound helps you feel the ocean. The creaking of the ships, the crashing of the waves, the echoes inside those enormous stone structures, and the battle sounds all help in literally building the world. At times it's too loud, some may say it's too loud, but it really takes you into the experience, it sucks you in. The background score ties everything together beautifully. Rather than constantly demanding your attention, it knows when to step forward and when to let silence do the work. The music gives the film a mythic quality without ever overwhelming the emotion of the scene. The performances. Oh man. The performances deserve a lot of credit because despite the scale of the film, the characters never get lost beneath the spectacle. Matt Damon completely carries this movie as Odysseus. What impressed me the most wasn't that he played Odysseus as some larger-than-life mythical hero. He didn't. He played him as a man, a leader who's constantly thinking, constantly adapting, and constantly carrying the weight of every decision he's made. There's intelligence behind almost every expression, whether he's standing before kings, facing impossible odds, or trying to just keep his men alive. Damon makes you believe he is someone who's survived because of his mind as much as his courage. It's one of those performances that doesn't demand attention through dramatic speeches. Instead, it quietly grows stronger as the film progresses. Tom Holland is also wonderful. He plays Telemachus, Odysseus' son, and he makes every scene count. There is an emotional core to his character and performance that gives the story another perspective. While Odysseus is carrying the burden of the journey, Telemachus represents everything waiting back home. Holland never overplays the role. That actually helps the scenes become more engaging. Anna Hathaway as Penelope reminds you of what's at stake. That's her role. Penelope could have easily just become another character waiting for the hero to return home in a cliche way, but nope, Hathaway doesn't allow that to happen. She succeeds at communicating emotional depth. Even with relatively limited screen time, she leaves a lasting impression because she understands exactly what the character represents in the overall Odysseus journey. The performance that caught me completely off guard was of Samantha Morton as Circe. Circe is one of the most iconic figures in Greek mythology, and Morton plays her with exactly the right balance of mystery, intelligence, and evil. Her presence alone creates tension. The entire sequence involving Circe is actually one of my favorite parts of the film. And a huge reason for that is Morton's performance. She takes a character that could have felt purely mythical, but makes her feel genuinely unpredictable. The rest of the cast lend perfect support. By the time the film reaches its final act, it becomes clear to me that the Odyssey isn't trying to reinvent Homer's story. It's trying to remind us how and why it has endured for thousands of years. And that is Christopher Nolan's greatest achievement here. One thing I found particularly interesting was the way Nolan approaches the gods. They aren't really presented the way you would think. They are obviously an important part of the Greek mythology, but I never felt like they simply existed to create spectacle. Like, this is something that I keep getting back to. Instead, they represent the forces that human beings can't control. There's always bigger meaning to it. It's not just about the spectacle. Fate, nature, chance, pride. Sometimes it feels like the gods are shaping Odysseus' journey. Other times it feels like maybe Odysseus is creating his own problems through the choices he makes. I like that the film never gives you an easy answer. It leaves room for interpretation, and I think that's one of the reasons it stays with you even after you've left the theater, honestly. For me, that's where the Odyssey becomes more than just an adventure film. Like I said earlier, it's about perseverance, it's about carrying the weight of your past without allowing it to define your future. It's about making mistakes and still finding the strength to keep moving forward. Most importantly, it's about home. Not just as a place, but as something worth fighting for. Now, I'm not going to give anything away. The climax portion leading up to the end are beautiful. No spoilers. You really get a sense of how everything that came before it matters. Every lesson, every sacrifice, every decision led to this moment. When there aren't visuals, certain dialogues have the power to create imagery in your mind. The way characters narrate their journey, basically the payoff feels earned. That's something modern blockbusters often forget. Bigger doesn't automatically mean better. There is soul in this film. The spectacle complements the soul. So let's go back to where I started. When I walked into the theater, I expected scale, I expected incredible visuals, I expected ambitious filmmaking. Christopher Nolan has delivered all of that. But what will stay with me is how I felt. It was how much care has gone into every creative decision. Nobody can deny the commitment behind the filmmaking. This didn't feel like a director making another blockbuster. It felt like a filmmaker bringing one of the greatest stories ever written to screen because he genuinely believed in it. And for me, that is what made The Odyssey such a rewarding experience. Watch this in the big screen. Ideally in IMAX. If not IMAX, just go to the movie theater and watch it. I will definitely be watching this movie again, so these are my thoughts on The Odyssey, ladies and gentlemen. Please do subscribe to my channel, like, share. Until next time, peace out.